What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Research Radar. We took a little bit of a break, but we are finally back. We're just going to go over some small updates with things that have happened in the research space, new products, testing, stuff like that. The break was due to my move. I moved from Denver out to Puerto Rico, so this is the new apartment, and everything is finally settled. So some big updates on the school community specifically. Gavin is officially a part of Research Radar. He was doing some moderation stuff, but he's going to help me with some content and stuff. And yeah, just some
I'm graduated.
yeah. Oh yeah, he graduated. So that was the big
Yeah.
thing. So he's got
Still waiting on those grad photos to get finished so I can make that post recap and everything. I know people are waiting on that, so
yes. When I was the grad party was good. The graduation was good.
grad party was good. The graduation was long. Yeah. They had us down there at the ceremony and everything, packed in like sardines, and it was hot. We have a coliseum here at WVU, and that's where we play basketball and everything. But they never built the building with AC, and they haven't added it either to have a competitive advantage when it comes to like gassing out the other team and whatnot. So it just roasts down there on the court. And it was, oh my gosh, with the cap and gown. But it was good.
No, I
We
remember.
got to see Fentanyl and everything, Maury. So no, yeah, literally, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, my high school graduation was outside on the bleachers because it was COVID
Same.
during that time. So I remember sweating during that. And then believe our building had AC, it just wasn't enough because my graduating class was maybe, I don't know, it wasn't that.
Mine was kind of mid-size. It
I
wasn't
think mine was around 10K. It was like 10K total. But that's
school, like high school.
no, this was college
I
graduation.
was about to say, like 10K graduating your senior.
No, my high school, like my high school class was 60 kids.
Oh yeah, that is
Really small.
yeah, that is really small.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like a couple hundred.
Yeah. No, so that one wasn't bad. It was just due to COVID. It was all outside, and that was
Right.
a nightmare. But yeah, I'm glad that went well. Please share those photos with everybody. I'm gonna share some pictures of Puerto Rico once I get out and explore a little bit more. I have not been to the beach. I've been to the beach once since I got here in 3 weeks. So
It's a shame, man.
it's like 2 to 3 weeks, but everything got settled. So I decided to explore that. I'm actually going to El Yunque, which is like the jungle thing. You can go like zip stuff like that on Saturday. So that'll be fun. I'll share some pictures for sure. But okay, for those updates, that's kind of where we're both at life-wise, and we're trying to keep everything turning with the school community. So
Oh yeah, we're back in the groove with things. So
yeah, no, I can already feel like today felt so yeah to actually just be not have a bunch of stuff to go run and do and kind of get back in line with everything. There's been a lot going on though for I think just like
sure.
testing new products, new companies, all that stuff. Research wise, there's a lot of crazy new products, which is something I wanted to talk about a little bit. The big one that's coming, people have already posted videos. I haven't seen them yet. There's these little oral droppers that are coming out. I have the products. I have the list over here. Um, so there's going to be Ipamorelin, TB500, CJC1295, AOD, SLU, GHK-Cu, BPC, Wolverine, PT141, Glow, and R. So all of those are coming in these little dropper forms. A lot of people have asked me the bioavailability of these, and to be honest, we really don't know. Like, you know how we just say everything bioavailability wise is always going to be the best, like subq or IM. That's going to be the maximum absorption rate of everything. Anything that's oral, nasal spray, buccal strip, that's all going to have a lower bioavailability. So typically you have to, increase the concentration or the amount to get the same overall downstream effects.
And
Yeah.
one other thing I'll add about the bioavailability of like or droppers and everything. So that's actually really affected by everybody's different gut microbiomes. So you're going to break down those oral products differently. So that is going to play a lot individually more than a systematic injectable administration peptide too, because all of our intestinal organs, there's so much we don't know about our gut microbiome and how it breaks down and digests and metabolizes different peptides and stuff like that. So that's going to be another factor to play into. So we can't really answer on how efficacious they are. Obviously, different oral droppers like BPC is going to have more of a gut healing, a type of
Mhm.
approach you're going to want to use. So less systematic healing, less angiogenesis type of thing. But I'm sure most of the people in the community already know that. So
Yeah, and in general too, I'm pushing more towards probably the small molecules will be better,
right.
uh, tolerated to go, systemic in that sense, just because
Mhm.
passing that barrier. I always talk about the Dalton's thing where all these molecules have certain Dalton weights. That's how you kind of measure the size of them and things like I don't know, things like, KPV or even, what we had in the past with, like, nasal sprays has been the popular one, so, like, Smax, Length, those are pretty well, tolerated, so anything that's really short amino acid chain-wise or, molecular
I
weight-wise.
think the clinical number that they go off of for Dalton's is it's roughly under 500 to be
It's
meaningful.
from, like, 0 to
Or it
500
means,
is
yeah,
anywhere
anywhere under that.
500 to
So
1,000 is, like
it's got to be small molecule. Yeah,
it's oh,
for sure.
that's considered, like, medium-sized molecule, and then, like 1,000 plus is kinda that's where we're getting into the territory of probably not. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's like and things like I remember if I remember correctly, something like occurs is like 3,000 Daltons or something like that. Like, it's a pretty because
Yeah.
the amino acid chain is just so long. So, that's something to keep in mind. The ones I would be interested in to see is an AOD in that dropper form if it is at
Right.
all bioavailable because of all the reconstitution issues that people have with that. And yeah, that would be a good route. The main ones I'm thinking are like AOD, GHK-Cu because the stinging for a lot of people. And then another one would be, R for people that are adverse to anything that's subq or IN.
Um, Another one, I if they have Ipamorelin, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right? So I think that'll be a good one if you have appetite issues with not eating enough, because Ipamorelin typically stimulates appetite, it stimulates your ghrelin receptors. So I think having that oral is going to be kind of like an MK677 without the uh kidney and like impacts you're gonna have,
Like
like
with water and
digestive. Yeah,
like with it's not as it's like a less strong version.
yeah. I would say it's more of not a safer but less risky version of MK677 if you have appetite issues on that end and you need to get more food in. Because I've had a few clients in the past where I don't really like MK677 for the fact that it's going to be harsher on your liver and your kidneys and whatnot. And typically, yeah, you're going to hold a little bit more water on it, but that's just another option. There,
Yeah.
something like that.
Those yeah, no, those will be interesting for sure. I should actually get them in the mail at some point, whichever ones were ready, but we'll see. I don't know. Just something interesting. I think they're going the route of just, just different options for, different
I
research
think that's
kind of
good
thing.
too.
Yeah, it's cool to see it expanding out for sure. And then they are getting third party tested right now, so they're not going to release those until they're fully third party tested. But some people have already, some of the other people have already posted unboxing, so I wanted to hit on that. Another cool thing I saw was some of the topicals got actually sent out for testing. There was like minoxidil, finasteride, RU, and then there was one more. I don't know what it's called exactly. It was like it wasn't the PTD. It was like P0004 or something. It was another topical
Right.
for hair and stuff like that. It's good to see just testing with that in general because it was actually
I really like
concentrated.
testing on those.
Yeah, and it shows, like, even, that same lab that was doing it did the nasal sprays and the, capsules, like, it's always good to see how much is per nasal spray or how much is per, each capsule just so you can kinda get an
Right.
idea because it could be anything, right? Like, that's one of the things I don't like so much about the compounding sides of things, especially, like, new compounding pharmacies and stuff like that. When you don't have a test, you have no idea if it's under
A lot of them
50.
don't test those type of products either. You don't see a lot of testing for RU and topical minoxidil and whatnot. So
No. And I'm sure there's some standards, like there's some standards in place if it's getting sold. Like I was in Costco the other day and like, if they have minoxidil or whatever, whoever's
Right.
producing it, I'm sure there's some testing there. You just can't see it. But if you're going a different route and you're buying it off a research website, it's good to see some.
A lot of the FDA actually doesn't do a lot of supplement companies. So most supplements don't even have to go through any testing or anything. Like a lot of the supplements you'll see in like Walmart and whatnot, they don't actually have to go through certain, obviously they have to be safe enough for like to be consumed, but they on the labels of like a lot of the supplements are like this is not FDA approved or anything on it. So
No, 100%. So I don't know. I think some of those, because some of them are prescription based with like the minoxidil and finasteride.
right, yeah, those yeah,
But what you
definitely
can buy at the
for sure.
store, it's
Mhm.
a little bit different. So that was pretty cool to see. I think there's also I've been seeing a lot of new amino blends. Like I told you, the company that's coming, it's not here yet, but they a lot of new cool amino blends, stuff like that, capsule products, nootropics, things like dihexabromethane, just more options for those are coming to the price tool. And yeah, it's just really cool to see a lot of people adopting testing. And on the testing end, we've seen, especially since the last episode, I think we got like 15 or 20 companies that have moved over to 7x testing. So identification, net content, net purity, sterility, endotoxins, heavy metals, and conformity. Because now you have Covera and you have ILS that are both testing for those pretty consistently. Um, on that note, I was actually reached out to by ILS for endotoxins specifically. They are taking off. Used to do a pass fail. Now they're just going to put how much endotoxins are actually present per ml. Because if you don't know, endotoxins, did a whole post on this, but I also covered it in the Yanishik interview a little bit. Endotoxins, there's certain levels that are acceptable per kilogram of, body weight or whatever. So there can't really be a pass fail on there. You can't just say, oh, this passed or this failed. There could be a level that's, low enough that would make sense, but you have to do a little bit more research into that to see like adequate levels when it comes to every other peptide. And the other thing too is they mentioned they also do the testings of like topicals, creams, stuff like that. There's going to be different amount of endotoxins in each one of those. So the endotoxins in a peptide are going to be a little bit different from the endotoxins in a capsule or a nasal spray, depending on the manufacturing process. Because it could come from anything. It could come from water systems, manufacturing systems, like could be during the lyophilization process. Like endotoxins can find their way in the product anywhere through that. So I think it is a good thing that we're getting more testing regardless. I think some of the testing is a little bit extreme with stuff. Another thing on that topic, I think every single lab now, at least Covera, ILS, Freedom, I don't know about the others. They added fentanyl testing to peptides, which I think is a little extreme because we really can't understand that. Um, it's unnecessary. It's a box to check, right? Like I get it if people want to see it. I just think it's going to cause more confusion. There's nothing that happened that push that to
right.
for them to add fentanyl testing. There's nothing that was found. It's literally just they got new equipment, new machinery. They probably got asked enough time to actually test for it, and then it was kind of weird. They all adopted it within the same week or so. I think Yanishek's been doing this for 3 to 4 months. And this was one of the tests when I asked him, he was like, yeah, enough people requested it. I told him it was unnecessary, but they kept requesting it. So if they're going to pay me for it, I'll test it kind of thing.
Right.
So if you see that popping up, it's not a worry for concern. It's more just like, okay, now these labs are offering the option to check the box and companies are like, why not kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just one of those things where if a company can check off another box, it makes their product seem a little bit better, which is fine if obviously if it's 7, 7 or 8, 8, it passes and everything. But yeah, like you said, there was no fentanyl outbreak or anything that was caught in like a bulk shipment of supply or peptide vials or anything to worry about. So
No, for sure. Yeah, and I've had people message me like, "Oh, is there a reasoning for this?" And
right,
no,
yeah,
there wasn't anything like that. I mean, it was just kind of a test that was added on, and I think that's a good point. Like a lot of companies are using like testing is a marketing tactic at this point now too, right? Like the more tested you are, I have a company on the price wheel that does 20 vials for sterility of every single batch. Like at some point, it's got to be practical to the point of, some companies buy 50 of the same product. Some companies were buying 5,000 of the same product, right? So it's going to depend on company size and stuff like that. Some people are just going to add all that testing in just to say they do it. You know what I mean? So I think there's a point of diminishing returns with all that stuff. We hit 7x testing. I think at that point, you just got to justify cost versus what you're comfortable with, kind of thing.
Right. I will say from the legal aspect of it that when all these companies start getting 7x testing and everything, and they're setting the trend and precedent of having testing and all, because now we used to be able to open a peptide company, test if how much was in the peptide, how pure it was, and then you're good to go. I'm gonna start selling peptides. Now, if you don't have at least 4, 5, 6, 7 of those different types of tests, people won't even look your way. So actually, though, the FDA and the like political scene is being affected by this, because if they see that these companies are actually doing their testing and doing their due diligence, then the pressure to shut them down goes down drastically. And it actually helps the research only space in that sense. So it's good that all these companies it's good that all these companies are wanting to do more testing and everything, but they need to make sure that they stay consistent and they're not just adding a ton of extra tests and causing more confusion, like with the fentanyl testing and everything. So, but yeah, if as long as they're keeping it to a standard, I think it's going to be a great thing for the research community in general.
No, I agree for sure. It's just one of those things, like, great to check all the boxes
Right.
of stuff. And if we can kind of all get in line with that and do the right thing, like it's not only those subnext testing, but it's consistent testing every single batch that comes in. You know what I mean? Just keeping those
Yeah.
standards in place is
That's why the
not a
price
bad
tool is
thing.
so good, because that's such a it's such a good resource for actually finding vetted companies who have good due diligence, customer service, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because there still are companies out there that are gonna, you know, not be as sterile and whatnot, and not
Yeah.
have good practices. But
There's companies that test once or don't test at
right,
all and will just kind of slap stuff up, and
right.
they're more that does cut their costs down for testing, so they can spend that on marketing, right? And get that out there. If they only test for 3 things, or they only test, they don't test at all, like, yeah, they can spend a little bit more on ad spend, a little bit more on everything else.
Influencers.
Right. Right. So, like, it's one of those things, kind of, you got to weigh how much they're doing on the back end, how strict their processes are compared to other companies too. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it on the testing side of things. I do have a cool little announcement, something I'll be flying out for, but I already told you about it. I won't leak it yet, but I want to make sure flights and everything are
Just
booked.
gonna let you sealed.
Gavin's like, I think you and one other person know. So I'm excited for that. We'll see some more stuff on the testing side.
It is awesome though. I'm just gonna I'm gonna drop a little bit more in the bucket so people have to wait for it. It is really cool
Yeah.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
I'll just leave
So
it at that.
honestly, as soon as I confirm it, I'll let people know, but I don't want to let them know too early just in case something falls through. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the update end of things. I don't think, besides like new products testing, it's been pretty consistent. We haven't had a bunch of
Right.
payment processing issues like we've had in the past with like stuff. At least what I've been hearing, it's been pretty smooth sailing, to be honest, which is a
And
good sign.
honestly, that's great. The quieter the research space is for at least a little bit, like time being and whatnot, you can kind of stabilize a little bit. I think that's good. So
Yeah, no, I love it when it's not. When
right.
we were at a point with like all the payment processors going down and stuff like that, like something was happening every single day. It was just, I think with peptide sciences shut down, that whole thing, it was everybody was just confused 24/7, just caused panic for no reason. So we'll see. It could change day to day, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Um, I do have, so that's it on the updates end of things. If there's anything else you have, Gavin, before we go into this Q&A, I have a couple.
None on my end. Let's just do some of these questions.
Yeah, let me pull this up.
I think I have the I have the back one pulled up. Yeah, I have that one pulled up.
Okay. So I dropped a Q&A thread. This was over a week ago. I wasn't sure when we'd be able to record, but we are here. So we'll go through as many of these as possible just to see. We'll go one by one. The first one, oral bioregulators for asthma. RS cannot get it under control after having pneumonia. For example, Taxorest. For oral, I don't know about oral bioregulator specifically. I don't know if bronchiogen comes in bioregulator, but that is one that will help with overall like lung functioning and helps with like
Artigen too, maybe. Yeah, an option.
yeah, honestly, I would say like a cardiogen, bronchiogen combination. I'm not 100% sure. I have to do more research on which ones are offered in bioregulators because not a lot of people carry it. I think Gavin asked me before the podcast, like how many people have oral bioregulators.
Yeah, I think they're pretty hard to find.
I've seen epithalon, but I haven't seen anything really else in that like oral form that's actually tested with anything because it's a different level of testing.
Asthma's a tough one too because that's more of a very specific case by case type of thing when it comes to like your lungs and whatnot. So I don't know if a specific bioregulator would be the first line of defense that I would go for when it comes to asthma. But
Yeah, honestly, if we're just talking peptides in general, I would look at something like a VIP might help with some like blood flow, and that also would help with some, like bronchodilation. I'd probably go VIP. You could look at
I've seen thymosin alpha 1 helps DP a little bit with asthma, just from like you said with the vasodilation, and it typically allows the body to, breathe a little bit better, especially when you're sick. That's why people use it. So that could be an option, but yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah, yeah. It's there's options out there. It's just kind of every researcher is going to be very different from that one. Uh, Let me scroll down a little bit. Samantha, I know people say no blends or don't use Tesla with CJC no-DAC because it's technically the same receptor, but I'm researching a Tessa CJC IPA blend and it's amazing. My question is, could it be more harmful than good? Better workouts, recovery, and muscle. Just the kind of like where that argument comes from with the Tessa and CJC no-DAC is you're hitting the same receptor. You are hitting the same receptor, right? Growth hormone releasing hormone. Both Tessa and CJC are typically doing the same things. The half-lives are just a little bit different. Normally, the way I describe it to people is like from strength levels, from weakest to strongest, it's like for those growth hormone releasing hormones, it's like Sermorelin the weakest, then you got CJC IPA or CJC no DAC, then you have Tessa, then you probably have CJC with DAC because of the extended half-life, right? Um, so the thing is you can combine them. However, it's not going to be the same research protocols. You know what I mean? You're not going to stack the max amount of Tessa with the max amount of CJC. There's blends out there, they'll make whatever blends you want. It's typically better bang for your buck and just in general a cleaner profile if you just go with one GHRH and then one GHRP, like a Tessa IPA or a CJC IPA if you want that maximal effect. I think you're just adding an unnecessary variable in there by throwing two growth hormone releasing hormones. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Plus, it's gonna be. I wouldn't say it's gonna be more harmful than good. It's honestly just gonna be a net neutral thing because when you're mixing Tessa, CJC, and IPA, the dosages are gonna come down for each administration every dose. So you're not gonna be implementing the same dose of like as if they were all separate. So I think if you're using it, I mean, if you're using it and it's working and you're getting better recovery and everything, then that I don't think there's an issue there. But in the future, I would see if you could try to experiment with, separating those variables out and seeing which one is best for you and which one you actually get the most benefit from. Because then you can cut out the middleman of having to have all three at once and you can really dial in the one that works for you. So that's just what I would go for. But the more names that people can put on, certain peptides, like, in these blends, so you can say, like, "This one has Tesa, CJC, IPA," and you can keep adding in peptides and making it seem like more than it is, but it's just another marketing type of thing, but if it works, then there shouldn't be a too harmful.
Yeah,
Or
I agree. I think people always think more is better with these blends. Like
right.
even another good example is like a NAD MOTS 5-amino-1-MQ blend. Like you're kind of the other thing you have to realize is you're locked into those ratios, right? You can't adjust when needed. You just kind of stuck with that. So if it makes sense and you plan on adjusting, sure, it might be a little bit cheaper in the blend because they're just sticking a bunch of stuff in there, but you kind of lose the ability of the individual components to titrate a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind.
And if you've never used those compounds separately, you don't know, like, which ones are really benefiting you the most. You could just be overspending. So,
Yeah, true, true. Too many factors in play. Like always introduce one by one and then kind of read the information from there. This next question, Robin asks, what works transdermal? That's probably the biggest deep dive this researcher is guessing is theoretical. Transdermal products are available. Is the data anecdotal? Example, how effective is this for pain or anything? Does that matter? And then she put up a picture of a BPC and TB500 transdermal product. So, in my opinion, a lot of the data is going to be strictly anecdotal on this. We don't even have a lot of studies in humans on BPC and TB500 in general. I think TB500 itself, not the TB4, has like one human study regardless. So, like the transdermal products, I guarantee you we probably have zero. Um, the bioavailability is definitely going to decrease. It's definitely a localized thing for the transdermals. There is some technology, and I'd be lying if I told you exactly what it was because I don't know. But there is some transdermal technology to try to get it to pass like the skin barrier. I think it can work for a localized effect, but don't expect like a 1-to-1 ratio of anything that's going to go systemic or anything like that. Transdermal, localized, will it help a little bit? Sure. Is it probably going to do the same as something that's a subq or IM? Probably not. That's my take on it.
um, so I don't know the specific, uh,
Right.
like, what this company's using, but I know that there is a technology that they use to make lidocaine patches and stuff for, like, localized injuries. So if they're using that type of technology, then those are efficacious and those do have a little bit of research back in them, the lidocaine patches, when it comes to, like, injuries and pain and whatnot. But like you said, it just for the BPC and TB500, we don't have that research. We have stuff that we can use anecdotally, like with the lidocaine patches, to try to, like, use those comparable results when it comes to, alleviating some of that knee pain if you put it on your knee or quads, your back, that type of thing. But we don't know how, obviously it has to be under 500 Daltons and whatnot. So it's going to be more of an anecdotal thing when it comes to BPC specifically for these type of
Yeah.
uses.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference too of what's going to cross. Like injuries are a little bit different, but I see a lot of topicals for transdermals for even like skin care kind of thing. Like I see a lot of like GHK-Cu, Snap 8, KPV creams that are like similar ones they have. And I think the main thing is it gonna pass the skin layer? It might help topically, right? So if you have like something that's exposed skin wise or something that might speed the recovery a little bit. So it's just something to think about of what the actual goal is, and certain injuries it just wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? It's like something that's not too
It has to
close
be
to the
very
surface,
potent
right?
at low doses,
Right.
especially because you're not going to use the whole bottle or the whole type of cream or whatever for your one administration. So it has to be very potent, especially to cross that barrier.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a guessing game. It's one of those things you kind of have to just research with, see how it works, and then go from there. Um, this next one. What type of blood work biomarkers do you need to know before you start peptides? Um, I'll throw out a couple like important baselines that you can go off of, and then you can kind of chime in. I think you should just honestly, in the beginning, you should check as much as possible if you can to get a baseline of everything. If you can get, a standard, I have a whole module on the classroom page, but it's like, you know, complete blood count, a general panel, definitely get your hormone levels checked, like testosterone, estradiol, free testosterone, like all those are important. Thyroid function, everything that you can get checked. Like I know you're going to pay for it a little bit on their panel. If your doctor can order you blood work, great. A lot of times you need more than what your doctor orders you because you don't. A lot of things that aren't included are things like IGF-1 levels, like those are almost never included in a standard blood work panel. So you have to order that extra. The main things I would key in on that are going to be important that they won't test for you are probably IGF-1, like hormone levels for sure. I'd never had like a testosterone test or anything like that until I like bought my own panels at like 18, 19, somewhere in there, right? Like I did some other blood work, but typically it's like the easy stuff that they'll test for, white blood cell count, red blood cell count, which are all important as well. And
Platelets.
those are the standard things. But, check liver markers, check as much as you can, in my opinion.
I was actually gonna say the exact same thing. So I've been doing a lot of coursework and breakdowns on blood work and what markers you need to check. And I think if you could just get a full panel and just get as many things down on paper, you will have an infinitely easier time reading and adjusting your experimenting and your research because like what you did with good labs and how you broke down each marker and everything. If you have a marker to go off of, you're in a golden spot. So if you can just get everything, like a full panel and then some of the extras, like we mentioned, then you're going to be in a great spot. And that's just where I would start. And honestly, and then you can start to divvy those up and get more specific types of tests for certain peptides that you're running. So I would always start with the full panel, just get as much done as you can.
Right. You're not gonna regret those numbers. Like even, I
Right.
put a bunch of stuff to my like good labs thing because I want as full of a panel as possible. I could have probably added like 3 or 4 more things and I wouldn't have regretted it. You know what I mean? It's just like especially for a baseline. Baseline, you should kind of know everything. And then like, something like a GHK-Cu and you want to test your IGF-1 levels after 8 to 12 weeks, that can kind of be more targeted if you're looking to save some money there. But honestly, like I think for most researchers, like a panel every 3 months would be smart. A panel every 6 months would probably be the bare minimum, in my opinion.
Because we can't track what we don't have data for. So
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. So kind of all over the place, but definitely check out the course thing. It's a fully outlined sectioning. And then just to point out, male and female panels are going to be a little bit different for stuff like that. So keep an eye on that too. Um, in the question, what is better, the blends or individual peps? For example, BPC, TB500, KPV, individually or in a blend. Um, this one's pretty straightforward. I've answered it like probably 100 times. If you want the ability to titrate and stuff like that, I would always go individual. You want to add in kind of one thing at a time and see how that works, especially with something like BPC and TB500. A lot of the times when you get a glow blend or a clo blend, the ratios aren't ideal for the amount of copper that's in it versus the amount of, BPC and TB500 you need for something like an injury. So make sure I would say always go the individual route if you don't mind. It's really just a convenience factor if you go with the blend. Nothing's wrong with the blend. It's just you're locked into those ratios and you can't titrate.
No, nothing to add there.
Yeah. Uh, I I don't even know what tinnitus.
Tinnitus, I'm guessing that is.
So yeah,
Knee tendonitis, maybe? That'd be tendonitis, but I don't.
yeah,
I would have skipped over that one.
yeah. Um, I've been researching VIP in the AM and epithalon at night. Okay to start Montse, NAD, and 5-amino 1MQ in the morning along with VIP. Also want to start Tesa APA at night along with epithalon. Any concerns? Not, I mean, not really. Me personally, I wouldn't throw in Montse, NAD, and 5-amino 1MQ all at the same time.
That's the issue that I see here,
Right.
would
So,
be
well,
so many one things at once.
it goes back to that blend thing, right? Like a lot of these things should be introduced one by one. I put out an entire like energy research protocol thing, and it literally walks through. It's like if you wanted to do it in sequence, it'd be like an SS31 for 4 to 6 weeks. Then MOTS-C gets introduced, and then if you still need more, NAD plus gets introduced, and then 5-amino at the very end. Like you have to see how these things are going to interact and the ratios needed and stuff like that. I would say yes, all of these are different pathways. I know the mitochondrial ones overlap a little bit, but the key is not to do it all at once. Like you probably don't want to add in all the energy peps and the GH secretagogues all at once, because then you have this push pull of all this different stuff going on. So I'd say at least give it 2 to 4 weeks, kind of like with one, and kind of add it sequentially. And I think that's how you're going to get the most out of the least as well.
Yeah, I'm always a less is more type of person, especially when it comes to like adding so many things in at once because you don't know what is going to be working the best, like I mentioned earlier. But also when it comes to side effects, you don't know what you're going to be getting side effects from and where you need to specifically target those like issues. So
Yeah, yeah. Uh, this perfect aminos thing, I actually looked at this. Yes, if anyone used perfect aminos, it's Gary Brecka's company. It's basically like a EAA BCAA supplement, and just amino acids. It's claiming 30 grams of protein, but it's like not complete. They're like adding the protein chains together. It's the same thing. I'd just get whole food protein sources at the end of the day. That's gonna break your fast regardless, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Um, let's answer Gavin's question. A great question. What's the workout split once settled in? I'm gonna try to get back to a I'm either gonna do like a modified push-pull legs, so it'll be like a push-pull legs plus a shoulders and arms day, and then just rest every 3 days, however that breaks out. So one day would be like push, pull, legs, rest, shoulders and arms. It's a little overlap, but push, pull, rest again, and then legs. Just go back in that routine. I might do that, or I might actually try out an upper lower, depending. We'll see. We'll see. I want to be in the gym at least 4 to 5 times a week. So I haven't completely decided yet, but I'm excited to get back in there and back into a routine. What's your current workout split?
I mean, I've just been running PPL for like the last 3 years, I think, just consistently.
Yeah.
I've had to take down the volume on quads just because I have a bad I wouldn't say it's bad, but from when I
Mhm.
played football, my right knee has always just been kind of, tender and whatnot, so I have to adjust volume sometimes there, but just PPL for the most part.
I think that's the best way to go for somebody that's not on TRT or enhanced for recoverability purposes. Like you're hitting all your muscle groups, plus you're spacing it out enough. You know what I mean? Or you're
Honestly, I think I program it in for some of my enhanced guys too. I PPL, it's one of those things where if you can you have to make sure you're getting enough volume at least twice a week.
Mhm.
But when it comes to bringing in enhancements and whatnot, you're going to be able to have more recoverable volume. So you can still run a PPL split, but you could also have more volume each day for that split. So that's where the enhanced factor comes into play. But
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's solid. Let's go through a couple more of these. Here's a question. I have an arm injury. Can I research with Cardillacs, BPC 157, TB500 straight into the area near the elbow? And if so, which is the best area? The muscle area, or I don't have really any fat in that area? I'll let you take this one because that was the one.
so I would there is clinical research like I mentioned earlier on BPC that there's a little bit of site reaction when it comes to angiogenesis and the healing factor that we're going to get from BPC. So yes, it will be a little bit more, and I need to preface very minimally more efficacious to do a site injection. TB500 is less efficacious. It's going to be better to be systematic. Cardillacs, I don't exactly know the clinical research or the efficacy when it comes to intramuscular site injections. But the problem with site injections is I don't particularly like telling people to administer its site because a lot of people don't know how or are used to doing site injections, especially intramuscularly. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's good that you don't have any fat in the area and you can just go straight into the muscle and you can use like an insulin type of syringe. But there's a lot of blood vessels and veins in those muscles, and you need to make sure that you're not hitting those, and you need to make sure you're doing it in as safe as way possible. So, yes, it's going to be a tiny, tiny bit more efficacious, and you might get a little bit more injury healing and resolution. But for 99% of people, I would just go subq, let it go systematic, and just go that route. It's going to be so much easier. It's going to be just a better experience because you don't have to really worry about those one-off, "Oh, I had a bad injection and I injected into a blood vessel or a vein, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna really sting or for a couple days and can put you out." So, I would always just go sub-Q with these things unless you're very, very experienced and know what you're doing. But,
Yeah.
yeah, it's my take.
I agree. And one other thing is one other thing you could potentially add to that, which I've been looking into recently for injury recovery specifically, is like a PEG MGF at that area because it's unlike IGF-1L or 3, that's like supposed to be for muscle growth or whatever, this stimulates some localized IGF-1 production. Similar route, but it just makes more sense for
It's
healing.
also cheaper than IGF.
Yeah. And it's easier to reconstitute too. For days more of a backwater is fine. So that's something technically you could add. I've done a couple posts, but if you really want even the full healing effect, something like a whole stack, you could have Cardillax, BPC, TB500, PEG MGF. You could throw GHK-Cu in there for the localized collagen synthesis. So kind of the remodeling.
Glutathione is a very underrated one because those antioxidants that you're going to be getting are going to aid in healing because it typically allows the body to bring its ALT and SLT down, ALT and AST down.
Mhm.
So your body's going to be at night typically in a better stage to recover. So just that's just another one. It's not going to be as efficacious for injury healing, obviously, as PPC or TB500, but
Right. Right. So that's just kind of the kitchen sink approach.
right.
Um, yeah. Okay, let's go through a couple more of these. Is there anything for a shellfish allergy? To be honest, just what pops off my head is like KPV. If there's any inflammatory cytokines, if
Yeah.
in general, that's just going to blunt a lot of it, regardless of what it is. Let's
So like if you have like an EpiPen type of allergy to shellfish, I don't really.
yeah.
It's more of
There's
a
nothing,
doctor type of thing,
anything to
yeah.
solve that. No,
Yeah.
for sure. Bev asks, now that extensive testing is implemented, what about all the peptides we had that are stocked, even though they were tested for purity? What now? So she's basically asking, before all this 7x testing took place, what do we do with the peptides we bought before and stocked up on? Because they weren't tested for endotoxins, sterility, heavy metals, whatever. Typically, I'm gonna be honest, 99% of these companies are buying from the same people. So if it passed before, it's probably gonna pass again. We went through a phase of research where there was no testing for probably the research phase existed for a long time, 6 to 8 years before this without like barely any testing. Right. Like it's nothing to worry about. It's just an additional box that they're now checking off that makes everybody feel a little bit more more comfortable, honestly, just seeing that there's nothing in there kind of thing. So it's possible that something could have failed in the past, but the odds are very, very low.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's all.
Um, this one, has anyone experienced with research with the elderly, either with orals or sub-Q improvements in overall well-being? I'll take this from like a neuro neuroprotective perspective, because that's a lot of
I
research.
think that's what they're. I don't know if they're thinking like just peptides in general or like nootropics or.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna take it a little bit more from like the nootropic side. I've heard
Right.
for because there's a good amount of research on these, especially like the nootropics for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that, just to
Mhm.
keep the brain functioning. I think there's two components to it. There's the metabolic perspective where you have like the insulin sensitivity and making sure the whole system at play is like intact. And then you do have things like dihexa, new peps, cerebralizin, stuff like that that's been studied in those contexts. So there's definitely research out there. It's just more of a thing. I think if you keep the whole system healthy and functioning, the brain, as long as you're limiting, excess oxidative stress and inflammation over time, I think that those are the main contributing factors. And it's something that can be implemented earlier on.
Maybe something like I think this reply to this comment was pretty good. Because elderly people typically get as they age, they get more injuries, like, from little falls and whatnot, so maybe implementing something like a KPV for inflammation or, like, a moderate maintenance dose of BPC could be helpful for them because, those little injuries, like those little hip fractures, they have a pretty bad mortality rate, especially if you are very elderly, so that type of thing could be beneficial, but, yeah, definitely keep checking in on the research when it comes to the, nootropic side of things. We're gonna be getting tons of more content out on that type of thing, and that's definitely something we can look into further.
For sure. For sure. All right, let's just knock out these last two.
Right.
Um, Bioregulators, which is better, capsules, subq, etc., taking into consideration accessibility and other factors. Um, I think they're both fine. The bioregulators specifically, I think in capsule form are going to be efficacious if they do. There's not a lot of research on bioregulators in general, but
Mhm.
if anything were to work in capsule form, all of them are so small molecule-wise, the capsules should have pretty good bioavailability. The sourcing is difficult for those because nobody's testing their bioregulators to see what it is. I haven't really found any besides epithalon that are actually doing proper testing with them. So
Yeah.
it's something availability-wise to consider, and then obviously you're gonna get all of that absorption with the standard routes of administration with like lyophilized peptides. So I wouldn't either lad or then you can go wrong. And then last one, AHK-Cu versus GHK-Cu. Any researchers got feedback? This was one that popped up a lot in the last Q&A I did. Um, basically,
I see a No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say AHK-Cu and GHK-Cu. I see a lot in combination for topicals when people mix them together. AHK-Cu is just for like hair regrowth kind of thing, if that's a goal.
Yeah.
So it's gonna depend on the use case, and then why not? A lot of people if they're gonna make their own serum or use AHK-Cu, why not mix GHK-Cu in there to try to enhance the collagen synthesis and speed up that process alongside the AHK-Cu. So it's kind of one of those things. I see the combo. You could run them separately. I just don't think GHK-Cu is gonna do as much topically for hair regrowth, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
if you're running a hair growth protocol, I would just go with HKCU, um, but I typically think people would. If they're getting them mixed up, then yeah, you're just gonna be getting upregulated collagen synthesis from GHK-Cu, and then AHK-Cu is more of a specific type of thing for hair growth.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, guys, appreciate it. Thank you for watching Research Radar episode 4. We will see you in number 5.